I was deflated for a second.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. My guest tonight has been called the modern day Paul Dillett. Now, for some of you young folks, look him up online. You'll see what I mean. Most recently, he competed and took third place in the Detroit Pro. Some, as well as myself, think he should have placed better. He is your 2018 North Americans overall champion, Mr. RPG, Ron Gordon. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was a very appreciative introduction there. Anytime I'm mentioned in line with anybody from the '90s or any historical guy, especially someone like Paul Dillett, man, it's very flattering, and so I really appreciate that. Well,
Because you are wide and thick with a very narrow, tight waist, and that's what I remember. I'm a man of the '90s, so that's how I remember Paul Dillett. Huge cannonball shoulders.
yeah. Paul was a beast. Obviously, I'm a bit younger, so I wasn't actually able to see him in person. But I'm really good friends with guys like Chris Cormier and obviously Psycho Lewis, my trainer. Those guys are able to like see the monster in person, man. So I really appreciate that comparison. But I got a ways to go. Got a ways to go.
So, Ron, we're a few weeks away from the Olympia here, past Olympia. In your opinion,
Yeah.
did they get it right? Did they get the open standings right? In your opinion?
Okay. Here's my answer. They got it right. However, up into up until the announcement, I actually had hot.
Okay.
So it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but the thing is, I felt like all three guys presented a different case
Mm-hmm.
between Derek, Hottie, and Samson, and it reminds me of you remember 2 years ago when it was Samson, Nick, and Andrew Jack at the Arnold.
Yes.
They picked Samson, and it was one of those situations where Andrew was probably the leanest,
Okay.
Nick was the freakiest, and Samson was just very good. He didn't have any weak poses. He was just the steadiest ship. And I think this was a very similar situation where, Derek was freaky, especially with his back shots. Hottie was just, obviously chiseled, setting the standard for conditioning. And obviously Samson was the biggest, but he's always been the biggest. Since Rami left,
Sure.
he's been the biggest guy. So everybody was waiting on that balance that he brought comparatively at the Arnold that he did. So I agree with it from that standpoint. I don't think you could have went wrong with anyone. But
Okay.
as a taller bodybuilder, I'm always happy when a tall guy wins.
Are you surprised at the diversity of open bodybuilding nowadays with the sizes, the weights, and whatnot? Because it's probably the most diverse I've seen in many years.
Honestly, I'm not surprised. I think that with the inclusion and the explosion of these other divisions, it's had a dramatic effect on open because you know, 20 years ago, all of these athletes had nowhere to go. So they either, played their cards into open or they, disappeared.
Yep.
I think because of that, now you're kind of getting, um, a lot of guys who used to be classic, now they're doing, open class and things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature. And I also think a lot of guys are seeing that the, I'm not going to say the judging criteria is changing, but
Yes.
they're seeing guys become rewarded more often for the more aesthetic. I'm not going to say streamlined, but more of the classic X frame physique that we know to love back in the day. And I think it's bringing some guys back.
Gotcha. So you grew up in Detroit, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what was it like? Was it almost like coming home, competing at the Detroit Pro this year?
It was awesome. It was amazing. So although I've been a pro for like 6 years, my contest history doesn't necessarily reflect that. I've dealt with some injuries and some things I wanted to improve here and there. With that said, I have competed in Tampa. I've competed locally, California. I've done in the Indy Pro when it was still around, and I gotta say it was definitely a different feeling. It was great to go to a place that I was very familiar with
Sure.
and not have to get dropped off and you know play the game of getting groceries, having things delivered, and not knowing where to work out. You know, um, obviously you're not going to do dramatic things during the peak week, but what you can do is reduce stress,
Mm-hmm.
and it definitely made it a very very low stress environment.
Love it. Love it. Growing
Yeah.
up, if I remember correctly, another podcast, you were kind of into kind of organized sports, basketball, football, things along those lines.
Yeah, basketball was my first love, and
Okay.
obviously when people meet me current day, it's kind of hard for them to wrap their mind around me playing basketball and running around. Um, but it actually wasn't too long ago where I was still playing ball and I hadn't hung it up. But yeah, I still love watching basketball. I love watching football, although I didn't really get into playing football too much. But yeah, those are my normal passions as a kid. Um, I didn't really know much about bodybuilding
Okay.
aside from just being fascinated with muscles. Just as a kid, whether it was an action figure or see a guy in a magazine, I always wanted that. I always, thought that that was cool to have.
Yep.
Who doesn't want bigger muscles? But as far as being one of those kids where like I knew anybody outside of Arnold by name, that didn't come until much later.
What was your entrance into the weight room? What made you get into the weight room, start lifting weights to start off?
Oh man, that's an easy one for me. Going back to the whole basketball thing, I was around 16 years old, and
Okay.
I was getting ready for a big time basketball season. We were in practice, and I blocked the shot. I came down to brace my fall, and I broke my wrist.
Oh wow.
Okay,
Okay.
and it wasn't compound, so the bone didn't pop out or anything, but it effectively ended my season. Now you got to keep in mind at this time I was probably around 5'7",
Okay.
115, 115 pounds.
Okay.
So I was real thin. Um, so when I got my arm put back into place, I'm still attached to basketball. I just want to know what I can do to not only get on the court, but also how can I keep this from happening again.
Sure.
So the doctor told me, well, if you lift weights, is one of the things he told me about. If you lift weights, it's going to improve your bone density overall. And now that I look back on it, I think that was his way of basically saying I'm a little too skinny. Um,
Okay.
so that year, for the remainder of the year, my parents are very, middle class, modest people, so I never really bothered them with, requests financially. But that year, I only thing I wanted for Christmas or my birthday was weightlifting equipment,
Okay.
and because I wanted to play ball, it wasn't to get bigger or pursue bodybuilding or anything. So that Christmas, um, you know, all of my uncles and coaches and everything somehow came over to my house the day before Christmas, and they were in the basement doing something for hours. And on Christmas Day, I had this Weeder all-purpose machine with the butterfly and press and the
Yep.
extensions for your legs, the lat pull down. And eventually, I accumulated some dumbbells here and there, and that was my start to weightlifting.
So did you said your uncles, did they help you with training and proper form and whatnot? Or did you just kind of a young naive kid just doing what every kid does?
Nobody taught me anything with regards to that, and there's no shade to them. Um, the machine came with a little manual,
Of course.
um, but it was very sparse. So I'll tell you what. Like I said, I was a big basketball fan. So what I would do is when a game would come on, I'd watch the game, and every commercial break, I would lift weights.
Wow, okay.
Okay. So again, now that I look back on it, knowing what I know now about training, I was probably overtraining, so to speak, and doing a lot of unnecessary things. 'Cause I'm doing this 4 or 5 times a week. I'm not training legs at all.
Yep.
So uh, I will probably do this for about 4 hours.
Really? Okay.
4 hours, and I guess what you get a commercial every 10 minutes. So I'm assuming that was a lot of volume that I was pulling off.
Were you eating as well though? Were you starting to eat a little bit better, maybe a little bit more?
No,
No?
no, not
Okay.
at all. Again, like I was just an inner city kid, and my I'm you ate what your parents gave you.
Sure.
I wasn't those things where I can make special requests, and I didn't know anything about 1 gram of protein and all this kind of good stuff. Um, so I was probably still grossly under eating
Okay.
for going to school, basketball practice, lifting weights at home. I'm probably under 1,500 calories where I need to be
So
a day.
you recouped, and obviously did you go back to playing basketball again once you were
I,
back at 100%?
I did, I did, I did, and I would say within about a year or so. And again, we talk about basketball players, so it's not
Sure.
taking much, but within about a year or so, I had a very distinct and noticeable physique compared to the other players. So
Okay.
it definitely worked. Yeah.
So when did you finally sprout up? Because you said 16, and I think you said you were 5'7". I think now what, you're 6'1"?
Yeah, between 17 and 18, I grew a foot. Yeah,
Okay. And were
yeah.
the coaches surprised? Did you kind of disappear for one season and come back, and the coaches were kind of, oh my God, where'd this guy come from?
No, it actually happened during the season.
Okay.
If anything, I think the coaches were more surprised because, uh, like I said, being a very thin player, I was very, very aggressive. And I had a coach very young when I was in middle school. I don't know if it's the best advice, but I still listen to it. He says, if you don't know what to do, shoot the ball.
Okay.
So I didn't waste any time when I got the ball to shoot it. So sometimes coaches loved it, sometimes they didn't.
But were you accurate? Were you making the baskets, or were you kind of doing a lot of
I was
air
good.
balls?
No, no, no. I had a stroke. I had a
Okay.
stroke. Yeah, yeah,
Love it. So now what? So obviously you're playing ball. So when do you kind
yeah.
of really start getting more invested into the weights and start getting a little bit more of that bug? Maybe not bodybuilding, but now you're really invested a little bit more.
Okay, so now I go to college, right? And remember, previous to this, I'm just doing stuff in my basement. So,
Sure.
uh, believe it or not, college was the first time I'm actually in a real weight room.
Okay.
With the bench press, the shoulder press, dumbbells, they go over 50 pounds, squat racks, leg, all these different things. So, what I did was, again, I'm starting to train every day and use all of these other different things. Still not training legs, right? Um, but I wasn't combining that with proper nutrition. However, I was probably meeting my caloric demands at that point
Okay.
because we could eat everything we wanted at the cafeteria. So it
Yep.
wasn't the best. I probably ate a pizza a day. Um, but yeah, I was starting to match it. I started to pick up weight, and I want to say by the time I was 19, I
Okay.
got up to like 200. Got up to 200 pounds finally.
Now, as you said, so you're on the obviously the school meal plan and you're eating whatever. Are you still kind of lean? Do you still have a crazy metabolism at this point?
Yeah, I'm still like that to this day. Like,
Yep.
even when I try to push it just to see if I can, get that Lee Priest off season look, it just doesn't. It never pans out for me. If I
I
have
don't.
one bad day, I go back to get ripped.
I don't think you want the. I don't think you want the Lee Priest the off season look. If you've seen some of his Muscle Tech ads back in the day.
But I think when you're always lean and one of the knocks on you as a bodybuilder is to get big,
Yep.
you're kind of like, well, if I can always count on getting lean, well, let me just pack on as much as I can and I'll deal with it later. Sometimes, if I
That's how I think the industry's changed a lot. That people in the off season do not get, I'm going to say, sloppy like some people used to do in the 90s, 2000s, where it was just almost obese. Where I think now people get big, but I think they're still looking good, 30, 40 pounds over with abs and still looking good.
yeah, but I don't necessarily know that's a good thing. And the reason I say that is I think one of the reasons that guys look leaner or stay closer to that look is because of social media
True. Okay.
um, and pressure to look good all around and make these appearances and all that kind of stuff. And I think back in the day, guys didn't use pharmaceuticals, year round.
Yeah.
So I think it was necessary in some aspects for them to put on some weight in the absence of some of their supplementation so that they
Sure.
can still have enough juice for the gym.
So we're in November. You know what that means? Upcoming Black Friday sales. Boy, do I have a Black Friday sale for y'all. So I've been thinking long and hard of not only how to make it cost effective, but also how to give back to the people that support. After all this time thinking, this is what I got. So before I start, I do want to say it's going to start next Friday. Go throughout the whole month of November. The OG Premium Protein, half off. 30 servings, probiotics, digestive enzymes, a clean, transparent label for $25. Pre-Games Volume 2 will continue to be 30% off at $31.50. The reception on this has been incredible, and I want everybody to get their hands on it, so 30% off, $31.50. But that's not where it ends. If you buy any of these two, you're not getting one but two things for free. Free gift number 1, you get a free shaker bottle. Free gift number 2, you get the OG Pre-Games. Volume 2 is getting way better reception than the original, so I figured let's give it away for free. Now, why would I be doing such a heavy discount and free stuff? A lot of supplement companies do around the same type of Black Friday sale, so I wanted to be different. Also, shopping for supplements should not break the bank. I had to clear out the inventory so I can make room for the new side projects that I'm working on. But that's a story for another time. Just to do a little bit of math, if you buy these two together, you're not even hitting $60. And on top of that, you're getting these two for free. So if y'all can help me clear this inventory out, I'm gonna make sure y'all get taken care of. And with these new side projects coming in, I'm gonna make sure that they stay cost effective as well too.
Okay, understandable. So was your first, trying to do my diligence, was your first show 2010?
When was this? So 2010.
I don't know what show it might have been, but I found in archives with you, and it
So,
looked like 2010 was a show.
oh, you did your homework. So, yeah, I did a show in 2010. It was, I want to say, by the INBF or some
Okay.
subsidiary.
Okay.
It was a natural show. I remember being at like a high school gymnasium.
Okay.
And I placed first in my heavyweight class. Um, it was fun. I wasn't completely bit by the bug.
Okay.
Like I enjoyed. I think it was good that I won because it really gave me a really good feeling at that time. But you got to keep in mind, like I'm still very ignorant to the bodybuilding process. Like,
Sure.
and I'll talk about that as we continue. But yeah, that was my first show, 2010.
Did you want to do the show, or did someone kind of tap you on the shoulder and said, "Hey, brother, you've got a good physique. You should jump on stage"?
No, I wanted to do it, but I guess it's one of those things where I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I just
Okay.
wanted to, try it out. People have been in my ear for years, saying I had, good genetics and potential, and you spend every day in the weight room, you might as well see what you can do, kind of thing.
So for the first show, have anybody helping you, or are you online looking at diets and magazines and everything else, or?
Man, so I was at a job where I spent a lot of time in the vehicle,
Okay.
and I remember nights during that prep where I just ate albacore tuna out of the pouch and
Okay.
all shift. So only thing I knew is that if you ate a lot of protein and you didn't eat bad food, it'll help you get lean. And I got lean.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I probably could have looked a lot better had I known what I was doing.
So then I'm looking here. So then it looks like your next show might have been 13. It looks like a Pacific
Yeah,
USA Championships, I guess. It looks, maybe that's what it looks like.
yeah. So between 2010 and 2013, a few things happened. I had a change in my career, which is something I had to prepare for and really like focus on. I couldn't really do bodybuilding during that transition,
Okay.
and uh, I suffered two bicep ruptures on separate arms.
Jeez.
6 months, 6 months apart,
In the
complete
gym or
ruptures.
outside? In the gym or outside?
The first one was in the weight room. The second one, I was playing basketball. Like I said, I'm still
Oh,
running
geez.
around
Okay.
playing ball, and it was a non-contact injury. And to be honest with you, I would have not known what I did if it were not for the first one.
Okay.
It was a very distinct feeling that I only associated with the first time it happened. Um, and because it was such a freak thing, I would have, if it wouldn't have happened to me before, you wouldn't have been able to convince me that you can rupture a bicep non-contact. But I
Yep.
did. Um, so that happened, and then so 2013 happened. My career transition's complete, and now I'm like, you know what? I think basketball kind of it's run its course.
Okay.
I hung up the gym shoes, and I said, okay, I want to bodybuild, and I got with a coach. He's passed away now. It's PD Devers.
Okay. Yo,
Um,
yeah. Parentheses. That's a name I remember.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. PD was my first coach. and he prepped me for the Mr. Pacific 2013.
Okay.
And I entered in novice, and it was one of those things like where the day before he was like, "Man, just enter the open,
Yeah.
why not?"
Okay. Yeah.
And I won the whole thing,
Wow. Okay.
my first PC show. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to win the whole thing, and that was a really good feeling. And I think at that point, that's when it was like, okay, bodybuilding is for me. I don't know what I'm doing, but bodybuilding is it.
So you get the bug. Are you already thinking like I want to go pro, or like what point did you say, "Wow, I've got this. I'm going to go to a national level show here and really put my name in the hat here"?
So I'll confide in you something. So when we had the interview following Mr. Pacific, and they talk to you and ask you how you feel and what your plans are, and the interviewer, she asked me if I was planning on. I didn't know what nationals was.
Okay. Yep.
Like I'm still ignorant to the process of what it takes to go pro.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, just do a show, you get a trophy, you go home. I didn't connect the dots that one thing leads to a
Yep.
graduation to another thing. So at that time, I enjoyed bodybuilding, but I still hadn't connected me competing to becoming a pro.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting. So how many shows did you put under your belt before you did a national qualifier? Or do you know off the top of your head?
I could give you an approximate because I want to say I did 1 or 2 shows a year. I just became a local guy that did a show or two a year for about the
Yep.
next 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And I remember, I think I lost a cow like 2 or 3 times. Um, and I was always highly competitive. Um, I would either win my class or become second in my class, but I would always come up short. And even though I knew at the time guys were doing different things that I wasn't doing, it never bothered me.
Okay.
I never looked at that as good or bad. It was just okay, whatever. And I think in 2000, let me see, 2016, I met James Juge,
Okay.
who he was local to where I lived. He was coaching a guy that I was training with. My partner at the time was Ron Sargent, and he's like, "Hey man, let me just come and meet my coach." You know.
Okay.
So I guess James had seen me compete at the California amateur show,
Okay.
and he said to Ron, "Bring that guy to me. He's got it right." So next thing you know, I'm in the guy's kitchen, posing, and he writes
Okay.
me a diet. And I don't know. 6 months later, we do our first show. It was the West Coast Classic here in the Riverside area.
Okay.
I won my class. I got a lot of eyes on me. It was a decent buzz. Um, and at this point now, I'm starting to understand. Okay, this is how you become a pro. You know what I mean? I still haven't
Sure.
done a national show,
Okay.
so I do that. I take my pats on the back, and now we go to USA, my first national show, 2017, and I get fifth. Now my head is down because I've never gotten fifth before,
Okay.
but I also didn't know the ramifications of like, dude, you're fifth in the freaking country,
Yes.
it's amateur. So after they kind of let me know, like, you did really good, you got first call out. All of the four guys ahead of you, all these guys have done at least four
Yep.
national shows.
Okay.
They're all, household names within that circuit. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I did a good thing. So um, that complete year, 2017 to 2018, was all about USA. I didn't do any regional shows. I believe back then, if you got top five, you could just go back and do it again.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to requalify.
Okay.
So I did that. 2018 came around. I felt good. I put on a little bit more size. I was deep into being a super heavyweight instead of just being making a cut.
Yep.
And I thought I had it. I'm not going to relitigate it, but I end up getting second. Uh, we're decent associates and friends now with Henry Jackson, but he edged me out. So
Okay.
I got second. I put my head in the sand for a little bit. Um, Then I had a moment. Uh, I don't want to ramble, but I'll tell you something.
Okay.
So Matt Burriscott, okay, my first year, that 2017 year, Patrick
Okay.
Moore won the show. Patrick Moore turned pro.
Okay.
Okay. Matt Burriscott was second. Okay.
Okay.
And he looked pretty good. I think he actually had Patrick in a couple shots. So now we go to 2018 when I get second, and I'm in my hotel room, and my father notices that on top of getting second, they gave me the wrong trophy. I got the third place trophy,
Oh,
right?
geez.
So I'm like, this is like my first time on Instagram. So I find Matt Burriscott who got third,
Okay.
and I'm like, man, I think we got the wrong trophies. Are you, we're in Vegas. I'm like, are you, where are you staying at? Happen to be staying at the same hotel.
Okay.
I says, okay, let's meet at the courtyard and swap out. So I meet him at the courtyard. We switch trophies. We congratulate each other on competing. We really hadn't had any conversation before. And I said, man, can I ask you a question? It says, how did you deal with it, come back? Because you're in the same position I'm in
Sure.
last year. You got
Yep.
skinny, you came back, and he says, man, here's my advice to you. And if he's watching, he's going to remember this. He says, don't do what I did. Don't take
Okay.
a whole year off and compete. He says, you know why? He says, because there's a guy like you that came back and beat me during that time.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
He says, so if you're second, take your butt to North Americans and go ahead and get your pro card. Okay.
Okay.
So I took that advice and I went to North Americans and I cleaned up.
Did you think so? Go back in your time machine. Did you feel you had it, or were you surprised when you actually heard your name called for overall and obviously winning?
I mean, you put me in a position because I always try to be
You're a
pretty
humble
modest, but
guy, but you're a humble guy, but I'm putting you on the spot.
I was fairly confident,
Okay.
after prejudging North American.
You mentioned Ron Sargent. I think he got his pro card that year too, didn't he? Or no? Mike, maybe confusing him with somebody
Yeah,
else.
yeah, we both did. Yeah, he was
Okay.
he was more teary eyed for me than I was.
Okay. So now
Yeah,
you get your pro card. Now, what are you thinking? I mean, you're probably excited that you've achieved the dream. Now, how do you
yeah.
figure out what show you're going to jump into now?
I had no freaking clue.
Yep.
Like my total focus was just getting his pro card, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just do the Cal if it comes up and all that kind of good stuff. So I get my pro card, and it's 2018, and I'm just training. I don't have a
Sure.
coach.
Yep.
I don't have a trainer. I'm just doing the same thing. Well, I'm still with James Juge, but I don't have a trainer. We're not really tight on the program. I'm just kind of still doing the stuff I was doing before. And I want to say in spring of 2019,
Okay.
I decided to go visit my friend from back in my military days. He was in Kuwait. He was a contractor,
Okay.
and this was literally just to go and enjoy and do something new. The Camel Crew was very popular back then,
Yep.
and like who else has the opportunity to go to another country and they have someone that they know that can take care of the logic for them. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know what? If I can just cover my flight and my food, the worst that can happen is I get a month to train with my buddy.
Sure.
So I go to Kuwait. Um, I meet up with him, and I want to say my first day we went to Oxygen, and unbeknownst to me, Coach Abdullah seen us train.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a very weird story because it's almost like some mafia stuff, right? So we're back at his apartment, and it's like 2 o'clock in the morning,
Okay.
and he gets a phone call
Okay.
from Abdullah,
Oh, interesting.
and he's like, yeah, and he doesn't have Abdullah's number prior to this. That's why it's so interesting. And he's like, he comes out 2 in the morning, he hands me the phone. I'm like, who's Abdullah? He's like, hey man, hey brother, I saw you at the gym today. You got a good physique. He says, um, come to the gym tomorrow like 5. Okay,
Okay.
I'll be. So my buddy and I show up. We go into the famous office, And he's like, all right, man, let me see your legs. I showed him my legs. He's like, okay, cool, let's do this, let's work.
Really?
And
Okay.
it was just that simple. So he took care of the month membership I had paid the previous day. He took care of
Mhm.
that. He took care of that for my friend. And for the next 6 weeks, I met up with him every day at the gym, got my butt kicked, and
Yep.
learn how to be a professional bodybuilder.
Wow, I had no idea. I mean, were you blown away by the Oxygen Gym itself? I mean, I hear it's like not a mecca, but it's just phenomenal.
There's no comparison.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a lot of things people don't get understand is that they're more than one oxygen, right?
Yeah.
They
Okay.
get fixated on one that's most popular where Brandon trains at. That's the one I went to as well. It's in Jabria, but that's actually an older one.
Okay.
There are other oxygen gyms that are even bigger, with 5, 6 stories,
Jeez.
and each floor is dedicated to a body part. It's quite amazing.
I hear stories that they have like just employees that rack and take off the weights for the pros like
Gym
yourself.
gym caddies, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Jeez. Oh
yeah.
my god.
It's it's
How
a
can you
it's a
imagine?
good it's a good thing until you have to do a drop set. You get like zero time.
Oh my
You
god.
know,
So
yeah,
you trade over there, and it looks like you decided to jump into Tampa Pro, if I'm right.
yeah. I got back, like I said, mid spring,
Okay.
and again, I still wasn't attached to a show I was going to do. But then I was like, okay, I put on some decent size. Um, the year's winding down. Let's do Tampa. I don't know why or how I selected Tampa. I didn't,
Okay.
I don't know Tim Gardner or anybody in that area. It just seemed like,
Yep.
okay, that's a cool area to go travel to and do something different.
And you take 11th. I think if I remember correct, if I look correctly, you took 11th. Were you just off
Yep.
a little bit? Everybody just a little bit better, or like, I mean, what do you
No,
think?
I think so. I got 11th. I want to say Phil Klahar finished just ahead of me,
Okay.
and we all know Phil continued to get better. Dexter won that show, and the late Luke Sandow got second.
Okay.
So
You're in good
it
company.
was it was good company, and it was the first time I had actually seen, pros up front, high caliber. It's great to see Dexter, a guy who had won Mr. Olympia at that time, like on display, and
Yep.
kind of really see what you're up against. So, no complaints with my placing. I was just a little undersized.
Got it. Got it. And then again, doing my research, I know you took some time off over like between 20, I guess, and 2022. Was that because of your tricep injury?
No, actually, I came back in 2020.
Okay, but I think between 2020 and 22, I think you took some time off. No, or 20 between 20 and maybe 24, took a little time off.
Okay, so here's the timeline. So 2019 comes and goes. So 2020, I go back to Tampa.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
and this is Hunter Labrada's debut,
Okay.
and you got Hunter, Ian, Phil Klahar is back. Dwayne Walker was there, so I ended up getting fifth.
Okay.
Um, I had fourth, but I faded, and Phil got me for fourth, and I ended up with fifth.
Gotcha.
Um, Hunter won, Ian got second. So I did that, and I came back. This was during the pandemic. I did the Cal Pro, but it was held in Vegas,
Okay.
and I'm not one to like gripe. I just really don't know what happened at that show. I got like
Okay.
14.
Okay.
We were wearing masks on stage, and it was just it was just awkward to me because I didn't really lack anything, and
Yep.
I had just come from getting fifth at what I would consider a better crop of guys, and
Sure.
now I'm at 14th, and I'm like, I don't, you know, that was my first, you know, moment where it's like sometimes you're going to win some shows that you shouldn't have, and
Yep.
sometimes you're going to lose some shows that you should have won. So I just look at it that way. It's one of those things. So that prep is when I started training with Psycho Lewis.
Okay. Gotcha.
In between fifth place in Tampa and that Cal Pro, which is held in Vegas. So we were about 4 or 5 weeks into training with each other at
Okay.
that time. After that show, I'm having a really good rebound, transition to the off season. Everything's going well, and that's when the tricep popped and ruptured
Okay.
on
Okay.
probably at the beginning of 2021.
Okay. So yeah, so
Yeah,
two bicep tears, and then years later you got a tricep tear, or that sounded pretty bad.
yeah, yeah. It happened, but so you're talking about at that point you're talking about 8 9 years later, 8 9 years apart.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Ron, what is a typical timeline of prep? You a 16, 20 week, 24 week? Like, what do you generally work out when it comes to prep timelines?
Um, I'm fine with 12.
Really? You're a rarity. You're an old school bodybuilder because I was average back in the 90s. Now I hear
Yeah.
20, 24 weeks, 30 weeks, which I think is unheard of for some people.
No, I think for me, and again, everybody's different, right? But I think for me, if I prep that far out, like I'm going to be creating more work for myself, trying to balance fullness, because I'm
Okay.
going to be ready, fairly soon.
Yep.
And I think that actually hurt me when I tried to do the indie. My first show after the tricep injury
Okay.
is I was in condition ahead of schedule, and I really didn't know what to do to to keep and maintain that level of condition, and it kind of hurt.
And what is your meal prep? What does your meals look like during prep? You kind of a high protein, low carb, kind of what do your general meals consist of?
It's a lot of fish,
Okay.
and usually during prep I get 3 meals with carbs. Not a ton, probably averaging um about 100 per
Okay.
meal. So about 300 carbs a day and one cheat meal a week or whatever you want to call it, depending.
Okay.
Um, we've kind of learned over the years that for me, what's going to really steady the ship is well placed fats
Yep.
because there becomes a point where for me, ramping up the carbs is really not going to stop that train from crashing. Um, but if I have well placed fats, making sure I have salmon as my last meal of the day, that's going to help me get in condition in a controlled manner. Because that's kind of the issues that we ran into before, where I started getting in condition, and it's like, when I don't want to be losing more than 2 pounds a week.
Yep. I saw one of your
Yeah,
videos. You seem to love your air fryer, and I saw
yeah,
sea bass and chicken. Are you not a red meat guy?
yeah. I have red meat every morning for
You do
breakfast.
that? Okay.
I have a lot of bison,
Okay.
um, and I have one steak meal post workout typically.
And you seem like you keep yourself lean, fairly lean. And I mean,
Hmm.
respectively, not skinny. I don't want anybody thinking I'm calling you skinny. You seem like you seem fairly lean. So what's your cardio
Yeah.
like? You have to do a lot of cardio, or you just good metabolism, good meals?
Yeah, I don't do much cardio in the off season. One,
Okay.
I don't really like cardio. I'm not a cardio lover. But the benefit of that for me is that when I prep, um, cardio becomes fairly stressful,
Okay.
which means that it's a very valuable tool that I can use because
Okay.
it's going to be a. And I've learned, like dealing with people and helping other people as a coach myself, that once a competitor becomes cardio resistant, that's a very valuable tool you can't really utilize properly.
Yep. So what do you
Yeah.
generally do? I mean, do you do anything just maintenance to keep the heart healthy, or do you do some regularly for cardio?
I guess you can call it like steps. A couple days out of the week, I help people out in the gym.
Okay.
So that's about 4 hours, walking, putting weights back and forth.
Okay.
That's enough to break a sweat, believe
One thing, now that I think about it, one thing you were on the Fit Nation podcast with Beatty and the crew, and you
me. Yeah.
mentioned that you generally would do cardio after a meal. You'll go for like a 10-minute walk. Do you kind of still do that now? Because obviously it's good for digestion, and obviously it's cardio, but it's shorter, but you're doing more of it.
Not as much now.
Okay.
I find that in prep, it's helpful for once you get within range and in shape that you want, and you
Yep.
don't want to be the person that, like I said, flattens out. I
Okay.
find that doing that amount of cardio after you eat is good enough to keep you in that spot, but
Okay.
it's not stressful enough to where, again, you start exceeding too much poundage loss.
Got it. Weird
Yeah,
question. You've probably never been asked this before. Is
I
green your
agree.
is green your favorite color? Because every picture I've seen with every show, you're wearing green trunks.
It is my favorite color,
Okay.
but I didn't know. I never knew I was showing my hand.
Yeah. If you look at all the pictures, because with all your years of competing, there's pictures, and I don't think I've seen
Yeah,
you in anything besides green trunks.
yeah. Like I said, it is my favorite color, but I never remember grabbing my trunks and saying, "Ah, it's got to be my lucky green." Like, so I guess it's true. It's a subconscious thing.
As we wind down, talk to us about 2025. What are you thinking about shows? I mean, what are you looking at?
I'm going back home. I'm going back to Detroit.
Okay.
Um, I love that show. My family can attend. Fuad did a really good job of taking care of his people,
Yep.
and I think that although it was a small turnout of guys last year, I don't think that that's going to remain. I think a lot of guys saw the production value and actually seen, okay, this is a really good show. Now, I understand that it's not the most convenient
Mm-hmm.
time of the year for a show for a lot of guys because if you're trying to get the most bang for your buck as far as how many shows you want to do in a cluster, unless you're just coming off the Arnold, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Uh, so I understand that, but at the same time, like it gives you an opportunity to compete. If you win, great. If you don't, you get a little bit of time to regroup,
Sure.
and you can go right into New York, or you can literally almost do like a miniature rebound, and then you go back at it. When the Vancouver's and the Chicago's come around,
Yep.
you can almost catch that second peak of those shows. So if you plan it right and you don't mind kind of towing that line of not ready for the stage, but not complete off season, it's not a bad show to do.
So just thinking one next year, or like if you win, will you kind of just ease in, or if you don't place well, I mean, what is your thought process?
I'm going to do at least 3 shows next year.
Okay.
Um, I said that last year. However, after my placing in Detroit and getting very consistent feedback, I kind of realized that the things I needed to improve weren't things that I'm going to be able to do from show to show.
Okay.
However, it is productive to get consistent feedback because it gives me a blueprint on things I needed to do.
Okay.
So I just needed to bring up my quads and quad sweep, which I think I have.
Yep.
Uh, excuse me, still working on it. Got a few more months for that, and yeah. So I want to do at least 3 shows this year.
Ron, what's the big picture? What's the end goal? You want to be on the Olympia stage, top six, top three? What's the end goal in a real world?
Well, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Right now, my primary goal and dream is to win a pro show. Like
Okay.
that would be really special to me. Obviously, what comes with that is going to the Olympia. So winning a pro show would like check 2 major boxes for me.
Okay.
And once you're in the big game, anything can happen.
I love it. I love it. As we wind down, one last question, if you don't mind. In a
Go
real
for it.
world, past or present, what two other bodybuilders would you want to step on stage with, regardless of the outcome, past and present? You in the middle of who and who?
Okay. Uh, well, it ain't gonna turn out too good, but it'd be
Doesn't
good,
matter.
good for my. It ain't gonna be good for my grandkids, I guess. Um, Ronnie Coleman. Sorry
Okay.
for the delay. That's an
That's
easy
okay.
one.
Oh, oh, three
And
Ronnie? Oh, three Ronnie?
no, I don't want to look that bad. Give me the first one, 98.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a chance. He was what 258. I get I can go up there with that one. I still
Okay.
lose, but I won't look like a little boy. Um, and 2011 Phil.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like that because it's definitely a little bit of diversity. I think you'd be closer to. I don't know who you'd be closer to because you got the lines and the physique. Wow, I think that'd be an interesting matchup.
I mean, it'd be interesting, but I mean, I think it'd be one of those things where the head judge would just be rotating those 2 guys next to each other, and not just be that odd guy out making faces. But no, I think, man. there's so many great bodybuilders, that didn't win a Mr. Olympia. Uh, yeah, but like I said, man, as far as I'm concerned, like you know, if I can win a show, when I win a show and qualify for the Olympia, that'd be two major boxes checked. And you know, once you get to that point, man, I believe that you unlock something within yourself.
Yep.
It's just like once you turn pro, a lot of guys have like their biggest, off season. Something happens psychologically once you wear that badge of honor. It happened to me.
Yep.
So, you know, um, hopefully that's something I can count on if and when I win my show.
Besides yourself for next year, who else do we watch out for?
I like that kid Stefan.
Okay.
Um, I don't know, like sometimes with the foreign guys who don't really speak much English, it's kind of really it's kind of hard to get a feel for their personality and their tenacity, and not to say that they're not hard workers or anything. It's just you just don't know,
Yep.
and um, they may be a guy that just does bodybuilding for fun, or doesn't take it ultra seriously, and they may
Definitely.
be as hardcore as Dre and Yates. I just don't really know.
Yep.
But the kid's got a fantastic physique. Um, you know, he's having a good off season from what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I seen him, and they were talking about Classic, it was like, what is he doing? No slight
Yeah.
to Classic, but I just kind of feel like when you have to at the beginning of your Classic career, you have to cut weight like a wrestler. You're not a
Mm-hmm.
Classic physique.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, I agree. I
So
agree.
he's one, and my friend uh, Colossus Kid.
Yeah, Kenny
Yeah,
Anuanu, he's a good friend of mine.
yeah, he's good. He was on a podcast that you brought up. I think Ken's got really, really beautiful physique. He doesn't have any weaknesses that I've seen.
No.
Um,
I should
just
train
needs
with him.
some,
I should train with him 2 weeks ago. He's a good friend.
yeah, just needs some stage time and a little bit more edge. I think he needs a little bit more edge psychologically.
He's looking at New York Pro and he's coming guns a-blazing. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for him.
Good, good. I want him to come in, and again, I want him to have more edge. Don't come in trying to shake everybody's hands and hey, man, no, come in, shake hands after you kick ass.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Ron, it's truly been a pleasure. I know it's training time for you, but where can
Yeah.
people follow you? You plug anybody, give thanks, whoever you want to do. The floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, great. I want to thank my coach Abdullah. Like I said, he's been with me for 5 years, unwavering. My trainer, Psycho Lewis, he and I've been together since the pandemic. He drove, an hour and a half to train me 3 times a week during that
Wow.
time.
Okay.
And that showed me a lot. And we've stuck with each other. It's not even a question for me, like who's on my team, and if I'm going to be switching coaches or anything like that. I'm fine. Um, Obviously, my family and friends, my training partners. Um, yeah, like you know who you are, basically, kind of thing. But yeah, I appreciate everyone that kind of supported me. As far as where you can find me, that's it. That's the question. So I recently changed my little Instagram handle. It's now Mr. RPG,
Okay.
and yeah, should be easy to find. I have a medium sized following, so I might pop up fairly soon if you look that up. And I love the support.
Perfect. Ron, again, it's truly been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on a little show like myself and wishing you a very kick-ass 2020-25, my friend.
Thank you so much. And again, I want to thank you for the opportunity. And I want to give you your flowers with regards to your presentation. And you blew me away with the amount of homework you did. You brought us some things that I had forgotten about myself. So, I'm my first trainer in PT Beavers, my first show, Mr. Pacific, all those kind of things, man. So I appreciate that. Kept me on my toes.
Ron, I'll never be at your level. I love the industry. I live vicariously through all you guys. So it's the least I can do is at least know my audience. And thank you again.
Thank you, brother. Have a good night.
You too. Everybody, thank you so much. Make sure you follow this man. It's going to be his year. Thanks again, Ron.